All right, Brad, thanks for joining me today. Obviously, a very interesting situation going on, not only for Lindenwood, but for the entire country. This is a situation that affects so many different parties, as we know. Talk about on Lindenwood's angle of it, athletics, how it's with the spring sports shutting down, with students having to be at home now for the rest of the semester. How has it impacted, I guess, your job? How's it impacted the university? I know you guys have been pretty busy lately.
Yeah, it's been wild. I think, as I had mentioned before, not a roadmap for navigating this terrain. Some place we never thought we would be, but we're here. I think when the word came down that they were canceling the spring championships is when it started to. Well, winter and spring championships is when it started to hit us really hard. Those kids that weren't going to get a shot to finish their careers, and the heartbreak that it created for a lot of our programs, and a lot of our programs were doing really well. If you look at, women's basketball was about to go take on Drury, and then NCAA regionals, they had to turn around, come home. Wrestling was ranked 7th and making a run at a top 5 spot, and in Sioux Falls had to turn around and come home. And swimming was right in the middle of their competition, and women were in 5th place, and men were sitting in top 10 and had to come home in the middle of their competition. And then when you look at, a lot of our spring sports, I mean, baseball was ranked 5th in the country and probably having one of their banner seasons. And the possibilities were endless there. And, a couple other programs were doing really, really well. So hard reality set in. But when it did set in, it's kind of when we sprung to action and try to make sure, number one, that we take care of the health and safety of our student athletes and our faculty and staff on campus. That's the most important, most critical part. Obviously, this is our livelihood, and it's more than just a game to us. But in the end, it is not the most important thing in the world. The most important thing is ensuring we take care of the health and safety of this country, and we all have a part in that. So when we kind of realize, hey, you know what, things were getting a little bit more serious, and things turned in a pretty quick order. And in the span of a week, we were making those drastic plans to shut down campus and move everybody off campus and transition to a virtual learning environment. So it was a really unique period of time over that week, 2 weeks. But once we got settled and once we got everybody off campus, once we transitioned virtually, I think people started to settle into their new roles now, working remotely, working from home. And as I was mentioning to you earlier, is, not as many interruptions during the day with people walking in and out of my office. So definitely an opportunity to be more productive and get a lot more things done. And really kind of, I got really two main functions. Function number one is reaching out to our staff and coaches on a very consistent, regular basis, and just making sure everybody's doing okay and settling into their roles. And number two, and probably our most important critical function, is making sure student athletes are okay, making sure that they're able to transition into their new learning environment in the appropriate ways, and making sure that everybody's doing well despite the heartbreak of not being able to finish out the winter or spring seasons. But I think everything's kind of settled down now, and now we're into a little bit more of a groove, and we'll get back through this and start to plan. And that's what we're doing now, is actively planning for what next year will look like, what the fall will look like, and anticipating our kids coming back to campus in the summer. So a lot to do, and so a lot still to keep us busy.
You mentioned how quickly it came about. I mean, it seemed like day after day, the news progressively said it's getting worse, it's getting more widespread. We went from me being an SIUE covering women's basketball in their conference tournament, them getting the bid to the NCAA tournament, and then all of a sudden, like you said, like in the matter of days, everything changed. How'd you guys react to, not only you, but President Porter and all the board members having to get together and kind of react so quickly?
Yeah, I will say, I think, and I'm not saying this just because I work at Lindenwood, but I do believe that we did a really good job of kind of mobilizing the staff, mobilizing the team, and starting to get the message out that, listen, these are some of the things we need to look at, and these are the things that we need to start taking action on right away. I talked to a lot of ADs over the last couple of weeks, and there's some that have been very proactive, and there's some that have not been. So I give kudos to President Porter and to the staff in terms of how we reacted and how coordinated our efforts were. But it was a challenge the way that he did come out. I was actually planning to travel to Sioux Falls to be with our wrestling program. And the day before, it's kind of when things started to turn around a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, maybe I should be on campus to make sure that things are okay. I think the turning point, honestly, from my perspective, is when the NBA canceled. When the NBA or suspended their season, it was the snowball effect, and everybody else, NHL came online, at MLB, everybody else started doing the same thing. And I'm like, it's just a matter of time before the NCAA has to come out and say something. Now, I was a little surprised that they came out and they canceled their spring championships right away.
Mm-hmm.
In hindsight, it probably was going to end up that way anyways. So, I think that our team, though, saw what was happening and definitely took the lead from some of those other states that were getting hit a little bit sooner than Missouri. Like you look in New York or California or Washington, kind of saw some of the things that they did, and then from there just reacted and started to put a plan in place to make sure that, again, everybody is healthy, safe, and that we do our part to control the virus.
Yeah, you mentioned the spring sports too. Obviously, as you mentioned, baseball having the season that they were, and softball off to a good start, both lacrosses. And then obviously, too, women's lacrosse, possibly, if they would have kept winning, the opportunity to play at home in the national championship. The spring festival was supposed to be coming to Lindenwood this year, obviously being canceled. I mean, it's just a big disappointment. Do you think there's a possibility, though, that could help the university get a bid for another, whether it's fall or spring in the future?
Yeah, I did. I talked to the NCAA on Friday morning specifically about that, about how much work and effort our team and frankly both the city of St. Louis or the St. Louis Sports Commission and the city of St. Charles put into hosting this type of an event, and how meaningful it was going to be for us, and how much we would want to host a future championship. So I do definitely think, whether it's the fall spring festival or fall championship festival coming up in 22 or the spring festival again coming up in 24, we will get one of those. I'm confident of that. We still have a couple lacrosse championships that we'll be hosting, women's lacrosse championships in the future as well. So, I think we'll get some championships. And I think that, all things equal between us and another city, I do think we have leverage with the fact that we weren't able to host the spring championship. But, really, that was a heartbreaker too, because again, our staff put so much effort and emphasis into hosting this and put so much time, energy into it, and then it gets pulled out from underneath you, which again, nobody's fault, obviously, right. But definitely disappointing. And so hopefully we'll have a chance to host it again in the future.
Yeah, and you mentioned too earlier about the seniors, taking a minute to talk about them. I'm not sure. I'm not up to date maybe on what's happening with spring sports, if they are getting another year of eligibility. But as far as winter sports, wrestling, women's basketball, the teams, swimming too, that were in their national championships, didn't get a chance to compete. Just talk about obviously them, what they meant to Lindenwood, and what they meant to their individual programs.
Yeah, I think that's who I feel probably the most heartbreak for, are those seniors that had an opportunity to compete one last time in a postseason championship, and not being able to and having that pulled away from them at the very last minute. I think it's hard to see. It's hard, and I'm not an overly emotional person, but when that was happening, and our teams had to come back home, had to compose myself a couple times, because you just hate to see that for those kids, and frankly for the coaches that put so much time and effort into it, that they don't have an opportunity to compete that one last time. When you look at some of our seniors, like Kelly Bildner and Lindsay Medlin on the basketball teams, who've been through a lot over their time at Lindenwood, and really had an opportunity to make a difference. And then ultimately, you look at someone like, on the wrestling, so you look at Chachi on the wrestling side, and defending national champion, having one last time to come back and defend his championship. And, those things are just tough to see and tough to deal with. But, I think everybody handled it with grace and with a lot of, just sportsmanship. I mean, they understood that, listen, this was my opportunity, and it's hard to have this pulled away from me, but also understanding that there's a bigger picture, and with everybody around, all the issues that have spiraled out of control here with the coronavirus, and knowing that it's a bigger picture, and but at the end of the day, it's hard, because that's your last true memory of your college athletics experience.
Yeah.
But and when you say that for the seniors, fortunately, I do believe that the NCAA is going to come out. They've already come out and said that they will grant some emergency legislation to allow those kids an opportunity to get another year of eligibility back. So I feel thankful for that. We're going to be able to get a lot of our kids back for that additional year. Hey, by the way, can you hear my kids in the background?
Yeah, it's all good though. Hey, it's all part of the process,
Hold on a second.
See, he's gonna go get his kids. The thing is, too, is also I got my dog barking, upstairs. My wife's not gonna be home. She's a nurse, so she's not working from home at the moment either, obviously. So you might hear some barking in the background as well. It's all part of it.
Well, now that all our kids are home for the next I've been on some pretty important meetings and I'm in the basement, so a stampede of elephants just running across my floor.
I got a new puppy, so I understand. He's barking like crazy, so it's all right.
They're all good. They're playing really well together, which is a rarity. But
that's right. Hopefully it happens in 2 weeks from now too.
That's right. So I think ultimately, with our seniors and getting their year of eligibility back is really nice for them, and that they don't have to go out with a sour taste in their mouth. And not everybody's going to take us up on it. A lot of people have jobs lined up, but we're going to try to bring back as many as we possibly can to finish out strong. I mean, when you look at our baseball program, when you look at our pitching staff specifically, being able to get Hentis and Beckman back, and we'll be just as good next year as we were this year. So that's one sport, but there's going to be I think a couple other seniors that will make a difference on the lacrosse on the men's and women's lacrosse side. Like you said, men's lacrosse was undefeated and ranked 10th in the country. Women's lacrosse was 5th. And had a chance to host the national championship. So, those kids being able to get that year back is very, very meaningful. So I'm glad that the NCAA came out quickly and took a stand on that and certainly did the right thing from my perspective. I think there's a lot of chatter out there about, winter sports. Those seniors from the winter sports trying to get a year of eligibility back, and I don't know where the NCAA is going to land on that one. Would love to see it happen. Whether they land on the right side of that one or not, I don't know. But I think it's a lot more clear cut with the seniors who are part of a spring sport. But again, tough ending, but hopefully they'll come back and be able to finish strong.
Obviously, too, as we mentioned, it's a situation you can't really do anything about. It's a unique situation, obviously, with coronavirus. We're starting to learn more about it, learn about the severity of it, but there's still a lot of unknowns. So, as you mentioned, I think when the NBA was the first domino to fall, whenever Rudy Gobert said that he tested positive for it, you had a feeling that other leagues were going to fall, in order there. So, it's a tough situation, but it seems like with the seniors that had the ability to play at the end of the year and then either miss their championship or miss the rest of their season, maybe they'll have an understanding knowing that it was really out of their situation.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's right. I think it's a hard message for me to have to share and stand up in front of our coaches and say, hey, your spring season's over. We're not going to be able to compete. We're not going to be able to practice. And, you even look at our off-season sports, football and soccer and volleyball and field hockey. I mean, sorry, guys, you're not going to be able to have your spring season either. And you're not going to be able to practice and get ready for the fall. A hard message to get up and deliver. But you take solace in the fact that hey, you're not the only one going through it.
Right.
It's a worldwide issue, and there's not a competitive inequity because everybody is experiencing the same thing, which I'm fortunate for. I'm glad that happened. I'm glad that the NCAA stepped in and put in their recruiting ban. I'm glad conferences stepped in and put in their conference-wide restrictions, because you take that control out of the hands of the institution, because then you worry about, okay, well, I'm not allowing my football team to practice during the spring ball, and one of our conference competitors is. Then you worry about that competitive equity issue. So conferences stepped up, and really conferences did a great job of coordinating, whether D1, 2, or 3, did a great job of coordinating with one another and say, hey, how are you guys handling? And let's try to be consistent with how we do it.
Brad, we appreciate your time, all the information, obviously taking the time at home. Just want to wish you the best, and you and your family stay safe and healthy.
Yeah, you as well, TJ. Appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you back in the office.
Sounds good. Can't wait.
All right.